What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
James Mennie of the Montreal Gazette, my guest now on Montreal Now. Jim, good afternoon.
Trudy, how you doing?
I'm doing very well because up until now and the very start of the show, I haven't had to talk about language. But we are going to dip our toe into those waters now because we've heard from the minister responsible for the French language that he will be meeting with Anglophones because apparently we don't have anything to worry about.
Well, I don't know if we have anything to worry about. What I love about, Aaron Derfellow has been breaking these stories left, right, and center all week. And what I love about Aaron's work is he usually writes what we refer to as a double-barrel lead. In other words, the lead of the story, the guts of the story is in the first paragraph, but there's usually a however or a but in the second paragraph, as is the case in today's piece about this meeting, because he's saying, yes, Roberge is going to meet with members of, so-called leaders of the English language community to discuss their concerns over the provisions of Bill 96 and how it applies to healthcare. And the second paragraph goes, however, Roberge's assistant chief of staff told the Gazette the government has no intention of dropping what some critics view as an onerous requirement that the province's, quote, historic Anglophones, unquote, produce an eligibility certificate from the Education Ministry to be allowed to communicate exclusively in English in the health sector. This is exactly what this issue is about. So I'm not really sure what's on Monsieur Roberge's agenda. Although I have to tell you, Trudy, I don't know about you, but I've been doing this long enough that when I see stuff like this happen, especially when on the one hand, Roberge is turning around saying the Gazette doesn't know what it's talking about, but then suddenly decides to meet with, English community leaders, even though these events are extremely rare, you got to figure something is up in Quebec City. Perhaps phone calls are being made not between, the Quebec Community Groups Network and the government, but perhaps within the government itself. First of all, we have had a deafening silence from two main players in this entire story. One, Christian Dubé, who's the health minister. Although I don't know if you saw Aaron's story today, there's a great line from a spokesperson for Dubé's office, who was asked about the whole issue of about the idea of having to produce a certificate, and she basically said, you know what, at our end, we're there to provide health care for people regardless of their language, and we're going to leave it at that. And you really have to ask yourself, because all this stuff is not happening in a vacuum, although sometimes it seems like it. You really have to ask yourself, how many people within the health ministry, how many people within the administration, the giant Borg-sized administration of the health ministry, are turning around saying, do we want our physicians, do we want our specialists, do we want our nurses to have the responsibility of being cell block rats, of being informants for the Office Québécois de la langue française, which is exactly what this law is suggesting will happen, that if you get caught speaking English, there will be a sanction for you as a professional or indeed, I presume, as a user of a network. So that right there poses a very interesting question. And I would love to hear from Christian Dubé. I know that Anthony Housefather, Liberal MP from Mount Royal, has gone on social media seeking a meeting with him or an explanation from him as to what the hell is going on here. It's great to talk to Roberge about this silly cocktail napkin law, but if it's being applied within our $1 billion a week healthcare system, I'd like to hear some explanations from Monsieur Dubé. And of course, I touched upon this earlier this week, Trudy, but honestly, let's go there again. I would really like to break this radio silence from Éric Girard, Finance Minister for Quebec, but also the Minister responsible for relations with Anglos. Either he is there or not. And I have no idea if the pay system for cabinet ministers it's a la carte, and the more portfolios you have, the more you get paid. I have no idea what the case is there, but honestly, given what is and isn't happening on this file from Monsieur Girard's office, I would respectfully submit to this CAC government that they eliminate this insulting I've always found insulting portfolio minister responsible for patting Anglos on the head and just treat us like everyone else. I mean, listen, for a lot of Anglos and Allos, it's language. For a lot of Francophones, it's essential services. Believe me, this government has enough incompetence to go around for everybody, okay? But the bottom line here is I really think we should be hearing from the main actors in this, on the ground, sur le terrain, as we like to say in these parts. And one of those people is Christian Dubé.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, James, because Sylvia Martin Laforge, the Director General of the Quebec Community Groups Network, gave us a statement this afternoon that said two things. The Quebec Community Groups Network has not been contacted by the Minister of the French Language. So if he is extending an invitation, it either has not been directed to the QCGN or not yet. And also, the QCGN requested a meeting with Health Minister Christian Dubé on Monday, but has not received a response. The QCGN views this as a health issue. So the thinking seems to be similar.
Yeah, well, but that's what I mean. I think something's cooking here. I think either Dubé turned around and said, make this go away right now. I'm in the middle of a major reform of the healthcare system with the creation of Santé Quebec. I don't need, and these are my words, but like the health portfolio is like the adults table, okay? Let's face it. The Ministère de la Langue Française, the grandly named and completely irrelevant minister for the French language in Quebec, is just to appease the picture bylines over at the Journal de Montreal. It's got nothing to do with Quebec. It's got nothing to do with reality. But the fact is, you're seeing an interesting example of thermodynamics because this is focused. This disaster, this public relations disaster, is focused on the health ministry. And whether he likes it or not, and even though he's probably got nothing to do with it, Christian Dubé is in this up to his neck. And I think if Monsieur Roberge or his office is saying, yeah, I'm going to meet with Anglo community leaders and so on and so forth, they pulled this out of the air last night. Because I remember Madame from the QCGN was on yesterday with you saying that all he'd done was he put out a tweet saying, don't worry, be happy, everything's fine. And now all of a sudden there's going to be this meeting. Things are happening. Probably rather loud conversations are being had on, encrypted BlackBerries, government BlackBerries, as we speak, because this is the kind of stuff, we giggle about Pastagate. This is the kind of stuff that really puts Quebec, which fancies itself, it's going to be some kind of a global player, either in, electrical energy or some other thing. This is what Quebec is on the map for. You ask someone about Quebec outside of Quebec, in the States, in Europe, whatever, they'll go, oh yeah, that's where you get fined if you speak English, right? That is where, and this is not a matter of Quebec bashing. This is a matter of people like Francois Legault having single-handedly put this place on the map with a collection of the most ridiculous, populist, irrelevant, and petty laws that even by Quebec standards we've ever seen. So, the fact that now Monsieur Roberge is scrambling around, the fact that, if you allow me the metaphor there, Trudy, they have tied a flag of truce to him and pushed him in the middle of no man's land saying, come on, let's have a meeting, suggests to me that, stuff is happening behind the scenes and perhaps the heat is really being felt up at the bunker in Quebec City.
Oh, okay. Federal level now, James. Trudeau, the Tories apparently now targeting Jagmeet Singh. What's going on there?
Well, the thing is, metaphorically speaking, Justin Trudeau is so shot full of holes, it's a waste of political ammunition going after him. And these by-elections, one by-elections in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, it was held by the NDP. They're concentrating on Jagmeet Singh. They're calling him sellout Singh. They're saying the guy likes to live well. He's had a great life, but he can't have an election until because he has to delay because then he gets a $2 million pension. I don't know whether that's even true, and God knows that's never been an obstacle for the Conservatives before when it comes to attack ads. Although, did you see the interesting thing they had to run a correction? They suggest, well, actually, it wasn't a correction. It was the news reports on it because they were talking about this attack ad against Jagmeet Singh. And it basically says he's used to getting what he wants. He went to a high-priced American private school in Beverly Hills, Rolex watches, BMWs, Versace bags, but now he's got a problem, i.e. he's got to push off the election. It turns out later, everyone had to run it correct. Yeah, he did go to a private school in Beverly Hills, but it was Beverly Hills, Michigan. So this is what the Tories do all the time, right? But listen, Manitoba or even Montreal. I mentioned this to you earlier this week. Craig Sauvé, the NDP candidate, independent city councillor right now, and I'm telling you, keep an eye on this guy because I think he's got a real shot. I think we are really, perhaps, with all due respect to the candidates, overestimating the concern over the housing crisis and the economy. And really, because this is a by-election anyway, it's not really changing anything. The fact that people are so utterly, exhaustively fed up with Justin Trudeau that, as I say, there are no more safe seats for the Liberals in this country. And I think LaSalle, Amard, Verdun is one of them. And like I say, I think Craig Sauvé right now, unless I see a huge turn one way or the other in the campaign, I think this guy is a real contender for this seat.
Ooh, fearless forecast from James Mennie of the Gazette. Thanks, Jim.
Good night.